Okay, and welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing another video about the Stranger Things Volume 2 trailer that we just got. Just a heads up, this video isn't scripted, like my last one was. It's just more me going through it kind of in more detail. Now I've done the frame by frame breakdown. I'm going to try and make some sort of timeline of what I think's going on. I've definitely been able to combine a lot of the shots together to kind of form one scene. So I'm going to try and explain what I think's happening. This took me quite a while to do, and I'm still not sure how cohesive this is going to sound. So we're just going to try our best. But yeah, heads up that I might be a bit more all over the place in this video, and it'll probably be a bit longer. But if you're alright with that, then let's continue. So I've gone through the trailer that we got released yesterday, the Volume 2 trailer. I've also gone back for all the original Season 5 and Volume 1 trailer stuff to see any shots that we haven't yet seen. Then I also got a few images from some Volume 2 pictures the Stranger Things official Instagram posted today. So that's everything I'm including. And I've kind of split this up into 3 sections. It's not 100% chronological order, but I've split them into kind of groups of scenes, you'll see what I mean. And then afterwards, I'm gonna try and fit them in some sort of timeline. Some things I think it's pretty obvious that they happen a certain way around based on what people are wearing and things. Some other things could be swapped around a bit. It's a bit unclear. So I'm going to start off with all the scenes in the right side up, and then I'm going to go to scenes in the upside down, and finally I'm going to talk about any Max and Holly, Vecna, and anything else we saw. So obviously the right side up and the upside down stuff won't be separated like this, I imagine, but it's just how I'm going to explain. Okay, also, I really hope this works. My computer is struggling with the amount of footage on it at the moment, and it keeps crashing. So this is going to be an interesting one for me to record because I'm looking at my screen at the same time trying to look at these images so I can explain them to you. So I think we're going to start off pretty much exactly where we left off, episode 4 in the aftermath. This makes sense by the trailer shot we get of Will in the Max Z just after the battle, and also one of the Duffers said this was the case in their breakdown of each episode on Instagram. So we have Will again in the Max Z, then we have a close-up shot of him. He's on his knees, so I think this is just after his powers, literally just where it ended. And then we have a shot that we got from their Instagram they released today, and that is of Mike, Will, and Joyce, all after the aftermath of the battle. Will and Mike seem to be back together again, which is good. This seems to be directly after. They're looking up at something. I'm not entirely sure what, but I'm assuming these are the only people here now because all the children did get taken. And I realised in my last video, I started going on about one to do with Will saying they had lost and stuff. I was like, oh, is something else going to happen? No, it's just the children are taken. I completely forgot about that somehow. So yeah, I'm not sure what they're looking up at here. Maybe something else is coming. Then we have this shot, which I think is them back at the radio station. There's 2 shots here that I think kind of line up. First is the one we got in the trailer of Robin, Will, and Mike all outside the back of the radio station. Then we also had this one from the Instagram of Will, Robin, and Lucas. Because my theory, because this is at night, I'm assuming they've gone straight back to the radio station to kind of all meet up again and make their next plans and do a debrief. I reckon some sort of attack happens when they get back here, and I reckon that this is where we see the shot of Will saying run, and then we get the one here of Robin and Mike looking at him when he's using his powers. And again, I think this is directly after because it's nighttime, so it makes sense to be on the same day. And also, Mike and Will still kind of their hair like looks all a bit damp and stuff from the pipe situation. So basically, a lot of like the timeline stuff here, I was just basing on is their hair still wet? Which I love what my life has come to now. But anyway, so that's why I think that this takes place directly after. And I think Will defeats this Demogorgon in some way. I'm not sure that's what he's telling them to run for. There's something else coming. But anyway, I think this thing in the green is a Demogorgon that they've captured. And I think they're tying up to put it on the roof. Because then I think this is where we're going to see Robin turning up the voltage and the Demogorgon being electrocuted. And this would tie in with Shock Jock, both like the shock of being electrocuted, and also people have pointed out that Shock Jock has something to do with the radio station and it's to do with Robin. I'm wondering if this is some sort of attempt to disrupt the hive mind here, because from what we can see, they've very obviously put the Demogorgon on the roof. They didn't just because they'd had to knock it out or whatever you do to Demogorgon, I don't know, to be able to get these cables attached to it. So I think that this is an intentional part of the plan to somehow either get Vecna's attention, disrupt the hive mind, something like that, by hurting this Demogorgon so they all feel it. Again, I'm wondering here, is Will gonna feel that? Is he connected to the hive mind here? Going to have something to do with that? I'm not sure. Or also, maybe they've got a Demogorgon captured because Will needs to be close to it to tap into the hive mind. So maybe that's another aspect of that. Okay, so then we also have this shot of the mind flare going up the radio tower. This could either happen as part of this sequence or another one, which I think happens later on with Dustin, Nancy, and Jonathan when they're back in the right side up. Yes, I did see that Jonathan has shots there. I know in my last one I was like, there's no pictures of him back in the right side up, but there is. They're just from other trailers. So I still have hope Jonathan may live. But I think this could be from this initial shot, and I think this maybe is what they're looking up at. Maybe this is what Will is saying run for. Maybe this is what he's seeing. That would make sense to me. Okay, and then we're moving on to the next kind of sequence I have. So I think this van pulling up to the radio station could be the start of this. This seems to be the next day now. Maybe these are some other people coming in. Maybe this is even Elle and Hopper. I'm not sure. Or maybe this is Erica and Lucas potentially coming in. No, because we saw Lucas before. Maybe this is Erica because Erica's there at some point. Anyway, I think this is some people pulling up to the radio station. As far as I could tell, we haven't seen this shot before. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think this is them coming up to the radio tower. It's the next day. But anyway, now we're on to our sequence in the radio station. And I want to point out here that unless there is more than one sequence that takes place here, I think Elle may come back from the upside down before the others do, and potentially Hopper and Callie with her, I'm not sure, because we see scenes of Elle in the upside down with Hopper and Callie in the outfit she was wearing in Volume 1. Then later on there's a scene where Mike and Dustin are hugging in the upside down. I think it's the Hawkins lab foyer, as if they're reuniting. And we see Elle in the background with her wetsuit on. And Dustin still seems to look like he's wearing the stuff he was in Volume 1 in the upside down. So I'm kind of thinking maybe Elle and maybe Hopper and Callie come back first and then they all go back again with Mike. But yeah, I'll talk about that a bit more later. Okay, so now we're inside the radio station. I feel like I talked a lot about that one moment. Then we have this shot from the Instagram, and this is Erica and Lucas in the radio station. I think they're having some sort of debrief. And Erica's got a newspaper cutting. From what I can make out, the first bit says the WSQK, and the last bit says Hawkins AV Club. I'm wondering if it says the WSQK welcomes Hawkins AV Club, but I'm not sure about that second word. So maybe we're having some tie in there. Maybe we're having some more Mr. Clark content, which I would like because I love Mr. Clark. He's a great character. And then there's this shot of Elle in the recording booth, broadcasting booth. I'm not sure what it's called, of the radio station. Again, she's wearing the outfit which I think she was wearing in the upside down, not the wetsuit, which is what was making me think this is all happening at the same time. And I'm wondering if whilst this is taking place, this could be where we get the shot of Will on the couch with Joyce and then Mike coming along. Maybe he just walked past Elle, leaving her to do whatever she's doing. And then he's coming to see them. This would also make sense because if Will then had to use his powers the night before, maybe he's passed out here, because it looks like he isn't passed out right at the start of this episode because we see them standing together. So maybe this is what then causes him to either be unconscious or just, Joyce going, well, we need to go have a lie down, because I can imagine that's something Joyce would be saying. And then Mike's coming over, maybe to check on Will, maybe to, talk to Joyce, open up to her a bit. That would be great, but I'm not going to get my hopes up too much on that because we know Mike doesn't like to share his feelings. But anyway, something is going on here, and I think that is Mike is having some sort of realization. And then we have this shot, which I think is, I'm so excited for this, from the Instagram again. And it's Will and Joyce in the tunnels, like holding hands on the ladder. I'm thinking this may be a heart to heart moment. Maybe this is where Will comes out to Joyce. I'm not sure. That'll be very nice to see. Or maybe this is just them talking about the aftermath of the battle, her checking he's okay. Maybe them doing more of what they were talking about before about trusting each other now, and her treating him more like, a grown up. Again, I'm trying to base this on how dry their hair and clothes are. I'm not sure this is just like a weird shadow, but it looks like Will's shirt is still pretty damp here, so I'm not sure this takes place with after the battle when they're going to the radio station, or if this takes place after the radio station bit when they go into the cabin, which is the next shot, where they seem to be in the same clothes, but they seem to have dried off a bit. Then also in the radio station bit, they seem to be dried off. So whichever scene happens first, the cabin or the radio station, I think this is them going to that, if that made any sense whatsoever. Again, I said, sorry, I did give a warning. I'm going to be rambling a lot here, so hopefully you're following along, because sometimes I'm barely following along my own thoughts. But anyway, what made me think that possibly the radio station scene happened before was just because Ella's in that outfit there, whereas here she's in her wetsuit. Obviously, she can get changed several times. They don't have to be stuck in that one outfit for the rest of the season, but that's just what made me think that. But these two could be in any order, really. But anyway, then we see this picture, which was again from their Instagram release, and also they posted this on their Netflix behind the scenes website thing. And it's Will sat on the bed of Hopper and Joyce's bedroom in Hopper's cabin. And I think that this is happening at the same time as Mike and Elle are in the sensory deprivation tank thing, because it would make sense that they all went there together. We see Will upset about something. I'm assuming this is to do with, as I said, them failing to save the children. Maybe also he's a bit upset about something that happened with Mike. But I don't know that for sure. It's probably to do with the children. Anyway, Joyce talks to him. She's comforting him. They have a nice mother-son hug. I'm loving to see some more Will and Joyce scenes. I really enjoyed them so far. And also it's nice to see them being in a more healthy kind of grown-up dynamic where Joyce is treating Will as more like a person rather than just like this little child of no autonomy that she has to protect. You know what I mean? She's just being protective. Yes, and then there's the scene of Mike and Elle where she's telling him something about it's not like one of your campaigns anymore. You can't define the ending or something along those lines. And then we have this picture of Elle in the tank. So again, maybe if I'm right in thinking that Elle came back before the others, she's looking for them in the Upside Down. Again, I'm not sure. Or also because, again, in the next shot, we see Nancy and Steve who have come back, but we don't see Jonathan. So maybe Jonathan's still in the Upside Down somehow, and she's trying to look for him. That's just a speculation there. But anyway, there's that. And then I'm going to move on to the next sequence, which is the hospital attack. I'm not 100% sure where this takes place in relation to those past two sequences. We do see Robin is in the same outfit as she was for the Max Z attack, so maybe this is happening the next day after that pretty soon. I'm also thinking this probably happens in episode 6, maybe, Escape from Camazots, because the reason that it would make the most sense to me for them to be at the hospital, the Demodogs, is then to be coming after Max's body, because Vecna realizes they're trying to escape, and I'm assuming if they, get Max's body and kill her body, like, in real life, she won't be in the mindscape anymore. But again, there's also the line in season 4 about Vecna saying that everyone he kills is with him in his brain. And I don't know, that's just some creepy justification that he's using, or they actually are in his brain, like, in the mindscape. Maybe everyone that we've ever seen die by Vecna's hands is in there. Maybe we'll see Eddie and Chrissy. I'm not getting my hopes up. But also, I'm pretty sure there's been some confirmation that Barb is coming back. So maybe Barb is in the mindscape. I think I've gone on a bit of a tangent here, so I'm going to try and get back. But that's why I think this is going to happen, just because that would make the most sense. Anyway, we see Robin in a corridor talking to some army people. I think maybe she's trying to convince them of what's happening, the urgency, persuade them to let them do something, I'm not sure. But either way, Vicky is here going to have to find out about what's going on, at least to some extent, because she's going to see the Demodogs. Also, this is getting flashbacks of when Bob died in season 2 at the lab, so I really hope they don't die. But I don't think Robin can die here because, as I said, I think some of the shots later on in the van happen after this because they're all in that army gear. And also, I don't feel like if this is the moment Robin dies, if she does die, you wouldn't show this in the trailer. That would be too obvious. People have said that they think maybe the lift's behind them or something and the Demodog's going towards Max. But I don't think their target is Robin here. Their target is Max. And as we saw in the Maxi battle, like, they are targeting specific people. Vecna and the Demodogs are attacking. There's 3 of them that we see. They run past Vicky, and then there's this shot of Lucas and Max in the lift with him holding the music to try and awake her, I guess. And we see the Demodogs approaching them, and then we see this shot from earlier trailers of them in the kind of laundry room of the hospital. The Demodogs trying to find them and them hiding. We see Lucas, Max, and Vicky, and I'm hoping maybe Robin is here as well. And then we see this explosion. Originally, I said I thought this. In my last video, I said I thought this was a laundromat exploding. But looking back, I feel like this is part of this sequence in the laundry room in the hospital because that would make the most sense there. So I think this explosion is part of whatever's happening there. Then we move into some stuff back in the radio station, but I think this is after we have Steve and Dustin now. You are definitely back in the right side up. This room here is a part of the basement in the radio station. We saw Joyce and Hopper there in episode 1. This is things where they keep a lot of their weapons, there's a load of guns behind them. They're gearing up. I like that Steve is back in his army jacket, but again, I was laughing at this in my last video. What is going on with Steve's hair? Like, why is it sticking out the front of the cap like this? I think it looks very funny. I think he looks like Agnes from Despicable Me, the little one with the hair that sticks out the top. That's what it reminded me of, especially later on when we see it again in the van. But that's not the point of this video. But I did just want to laugh at Steve's hair. And then we also see this picture again. This was from Instagram. I think they're in the same room here. I think it's part of the same conversation with Steve reassuring Dustin. Again, as I'm seeing this now, I'm realizing that underneath Dustin's like camo grass thing, I know it has a proper name, I don't remember what it is. He is wearing his jacket, so maybe when he reunites with Mike, he's just taking the upside down, he's just taking this off. But I think this is a different thing. I think they all go into the upside down again later. I'm pretty sure of that. Again, I'm gonna apologise for the rambling. I really hope you understand what I'm saying. I'm just kind of letting my mind go wherever it's going here and recording me say it, because a lot of you said in my Q&A video that you liked this style. So these are kind of just my raw thoughts. I'm not going to edit this very much. I'm going to take out the bits where I'm making absolutely no sense and not even saying real words. And then we have this scene, and this is my confirmation that Jonathan does make it back, at least at some point. But also, as I don't think he's in the van scene, I'm wondering if maybe he got injured or something, I'm not sure. Or maybe he is in the van and we just can't see him in that shot. But anyway, we have Jonathan, we have Elle in her wetsuit, we have Dustin, I think Lucas. I'm not sure this is part of Mike's hat, and maybe this is Will at the front. I'm sure there are people out there that have managed to identify everyone. I can't. Then also, part of me thought maybe that was Mike at the back, because it did kind of look like his jumper and his hair. But Mike has shorter hair than that now, I think. And I even saw some people in comments saying it looked like Susie's sister, Eden. I don't know why she'd be back, but it does kind of look a bit like her. So we've got someone in the back who I'm not sure who that is. But I think this is them all having some sort of, hopefully not a goodbye hug, but some sort of hug before they go on the mission. I think this is before they go back into the Upside Down. Okay, so then the next sequence is Murray driving the truck up to the Max Z. I did have a look at this to see if it was kind of edited out context and this would be different sequences, but actually I think it is probably all part of the same one. We can see this is after the attack because the van has now been destroyed. There's like a hole in the roof. Also, there's a big demo Gorgon like slash mark by Mike in the van. We see him. This is the right side up. We can tell. We see him driving up to the Max Z here. Him saying "Showtime" is the walkie, and I think this is then probably where we're going to get this shot of Mike and Elle reassuring each other. Again, I think this is after they had their conversation by the isolation tank about Mike not being able to control everything anymore, and not being able to decide the endings of things. So this was kind of, I feel like, would follow on nicely from that. And we can also see Steve in the background here. This is the moment when I was laughing about his hair. So I think that's when this takes place. Again, it doesn't look like a particularly romantic scene to me. It looks like reassuring someone, like a friend or family, before you go into battle, because you want them all to be okay. And especially if it links back to a conversation they had earlier worrying about this. It makes sense to me. And also it takes place with loads of other people around. But I did notice that this shot in the trailer did happen directly after we got the one of Will, Mike and Robin by the radio station. So they're definitely setting up love triangle stuff here. They put those shots together on purpose. And also that time Jonathan is saying some sort of voiceover about having to make a decision. Anyway, then we see Mike, who's kind of giving this weird smile. Not sure what that's about. Then I think this is them I think this is Dr. K and some soldiers shooting back at them. Some people were saying that this looks like the Upside Down lab. I'm not sure about this one specific shot, if it is or not, but I think overall the scene of them shooting back is in the right side up because it just looks like way from the wider shots we got and it would make sense. We get Murray ducking as he's being shot at, Nancy shooting back, we see the van shaking, we've got Robin, Dustin, Lucas, Will kind of falling about in there as they're shaking. They're at the back of the van, whereas Mike, Elle and Steve were at the front. Nancy's in the van at some point because she's shooting. We don't see Jonathan, but maybe he is kind of opposite Steve on the other side of the front. So maybe he is on this mission and we just don't see. So yeah, Nancy's shooting, people are shooting back. Robin saying, I thought this was the easy part. Lucas saying, like, it was. So who knows what's happening next. Then this is the last shot I got from the right side up stuff. And I'm assuming this is the right side up. But it's slightly unclear, to be honest, at this point, because of all the red and blue lighting. So maybe this is just the Upside Down. Maybe they're at the radio tower in the Upside Down. I'm not actually sure. Maybe this is when kind of what we think's happening and the worlds will spill together. So this bit actually could be happening in either. But anyway, we have Dustin, Nancy, and Jonathan, I think, on the radio tower, all like in their army gear, looking up at something. Maybe this is the void. Like maybe this is the red anomaly thing we're going to see in a minute. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the Upside Down shots. And I think this initial part with the four, Dustin, Steve, Jonathan, Nancy, is going to take place in episode 5 because they're talking about going to the lab. So I think this is where their part's going to pick up from. So they're all looking up at the lab. We then see a shot of them from the other direction, again looking towards it. Dustin's got his walkie, Nancy's got his gun, they've all got torches. I'm assuming they've just left Steve's car in the wall at this point. Then we see a shot from inside the lab. I think this is somewhere downstairs because, as I said in my breakdown, I think these are like some sort of ceiling lights. Then we see this shot of Dustin and Steve looking up at the kind of like melted goop stuff, and it kind of looks like this world is just kind of like melting apart. Maybe it's to do with some sort of heat thing from the anomaly. I'm just going to call it anomaly because I'm not 100% sure what it is. But also the red stuff looks kind of ominous. It's very horror movie. Is this blood? Is this like Demogorgon blood? I don't know what it is, but it looks kind of creepy. So I'm going to move on. Then I think this is all part of them exploring the lab. You have Dustin and Steve looking upwards. I think Dustin's got some sort of book in his hand here, because Steve looks like he's holding the walkie. Maybe it's part of his map. I don't know. But he's got something like a blue kind of something in his hand. They're looking up. I think this is like on the top floor of the lab before you get to the roof, if that makes sense, because here we can see them looking up the roof. There's a square hole in part of the lab. I don't know what that thing's called. Do you know what I mean? When some levels don't, there's a gap. There's a hole basically in that. They're on the the level right before they're looking up. I don't know why I explained that in so much detail. You know what I mean here. And this is the anomaly. We didn't seem to be able to see it when they were standing outside. Maybe the clouds were just hiding it because there was this red stuff above. Then there's this shot of Dustin running away, and we can see this is the rainbow room where Elle and the others were, because you can see a rainbow on the floor. So I think that's what this is. And I'm thinking that this could happen right before we get the conversation between Steve and Dustin about Dustin saying they didn't know anything about the Upside Down. Everything they thought they knew was dead wrong. Maybe he sees something in this lab that kind of gives the game away a bit of what's going on. That would be interesting. Or maybe this is him running to see Mike later on when they reunite. But I think also this bit could be where we saw Steve and Dustin hugging. Maybe because of what he's realised, or maybe because they think they're saying goodbye to Nancy and Jonathan, who I think then go up to the roof. We have this shot of Nancy and Jonathan kind of having a heart-to-heart. I can't remember what he says here, Jonathan, so I think it's something about being together or doing something together. I really hope he's not proposing here. Please don't propose now, Jonathan. This is not the time or the place, despite what Murray says. Nancy doesn't want that, and also, I've got nothing against Nancy and Jonathan being together. I think it's actually more healthy than Nancy and Steve. But just this is not the right time or place to be proposing, Jonathan. Please don't be doing that. But anyway, I reckon then they go up to the roof together. See Nancy and Jonathan, they're only like the best in the t-shirt here, whereas when they're on the roof again, they've got the jackets on. Maybe this could take place in a different order. But anyway, then they're on the roof. We've got this like blue electricity lightning stuff. The anomaly swirling about. Nancy trying to shoot at it. Everything's melting. Jonathan's trying to protect Nancy as it's kind of the anomaly things enlarging and swirling around. Again, my theory is this is some sort of wormhole, black hole, time travel dimension situation. Because from Mr. Clark's lesson, we know wormholes are going to play a role in some point, because Mr. Clark's science lessons, they always matter. They're always relevant. And he's talking about wormholes. And as I said in my last video, the thing on the board that said closed time-like curves, that's about time travel. And I now know this because for some reason I started watching like full-on physics people explaining this on YouTube in detail and using lots of maths and graphs that I didn't understand, but I got the gist of what this bit was about. This is what I was doing in the middle of the night because I have an absolutely ridiculous hyperfixation on this show now, and I want to learn everything about it. And that now includes learning the maths and physics of time travel. But anyway, the closed time-like curve thing is the theory that with a wormhole you can travel back in time through it to the point where the wormhole was created, because basically the wormhole, again, this might not be 100% scientifically accurate, but it's the gist of it. And again, it's kind of like a sci-fi show, it's not going to be 100% scientifically accurate. But anyway, the wormhole is spinning, and due to like speed or like the gravity or whatever, the top and the bottom, the time is moving at different speeds on them. So they're both like going forward in time but at different rates. So one at the bottom, where it could be basically virtually frozen in time, which is my theory about potentially this is what the Upside Down could be about, but I don't know there. But it could be moving super slow. So you could basically, by going through it, go back in time, but only to the point that the wormhole was created, that you can't go back further than that. So I'm thinking if, because this is a specific date, the 6th of November, maybe that's got something to do with that. Or maybe even it's to do with Henry going to the Upside Down in the first place, because, or Dimension X, whatever it is, because I haven't seen First Shadow, but I have looked at a synopsis of it because I know it's going to be relevant now. And I'm pretty sure that date is also to do with Henry being taken. And also I'm pretty sure him and Will share the same birthday. there's so much time imagery, there's clocks, 12 children being taken, I think 12 hands on a clock. Like, there was 4 people taken, 4 chimes in season 4. Maybe to open this rift, maybe that's what the children are doing, maybe they're providing this energy. That kind of sounded weird and kind of messed up, but you know what I mean. That's kind of my theory. I was planning on doing a whole separate video explaining it in detail. Honestly, at this point, I'm not sure I'm going to have time to do that. So I'm glad I got to talk about it here. That's kind of my take on what I think is going on. And I think the time travel is going to have something to do with them going either back in time or the Upside Down is back in time. I haven't got a full theory, but that's kind of the gist of what I've got. Anyway, then we see the anomaly thing exploding. We see lots of shots of this throughout the trailer. I'm thinking that this could be when Vecna's got the children and his plan is now in action. And this is being used to open a wormhole, reset something similar to the rifts in season 4, because before, although Vecna could project his mind into the right side up Hawkins, he couldn't physically go in there until he opened these rifts. So maybe this is something similar. I'm actually thinking another part of my theory is maybe Vecna's actually trapped in the Upside Down and it's like a bubble, and maybe on the outside of this wall is Dimension X or something. Maybe like Will L, whoever kind of created this as part of it when Will was taken, because we know it was created on that night. They trapped Vecna and some of the Demodogs in here, because in season 1 we saw the Demodogs breeding, we saw eggs. So I'm wondering if that's why Vecna needs this portal thing. Again, this is very loose concepts of the theory. It's not been properly thought out. And I was hoping to talk about it properly once I'd thought about it more, but I thought about it a lot and I still can't get my head around it. Time travel always confuses me. So if you have any ideas, let me know. Oh my word, I just realised I've been talking for like 35 minutes already. This is going to be a long video, but hopefully you like me waffling on about this. Hopefully it's enjoyable and it's not just incoherent. So next, again, as part of this explosion, we see Nancy and Jonathan kind of being like chucked back by the explosion, like the blast. This looks very unsafe. I'm not quite sure how they're getting out here. Again, I said it looks like we saw them later on in the right side up, but because I think some people come out of the upside down, as I said, because L's in a different outfit and go back in, I'm also thinking, what if they came out, they go back, because they've already seen this anomaly thing, they've come back to the right side up, they've gone back in the upside down to go and have another look, and this is when the explosion happens, which would make more sense, especially as I think it's to do with tearing down the wall, because we see the shot of Hopper at the wall where it's going towards. I'm not 100% sure how they're going to survive this. I hope they do, but they're currently, to be honest, all the kind of older 4 currently probably the ones I'm most worried about in terms of survival rates. I mean, to me, this whole thing, the way you see it explode, it reminds me of like a supernova, like a star exploding and dying. And it's kind of all like the black hole, wormhole thing. It reminds me of both supernova, like real images in real life, and also of these sorts of things we see in sci-fi shows surrounding wormholes and black holes. Because especially the shot here, there's like a center and it's coming out all the energy. I'm not sure, but I'm slightly worried about their safety, along with Robin's, and maybe even Steve's. It's not looking good for them. I'm just going to say that. But then we see this change into blue. This stuff, it kind of goes from red to white and then blue. Obviously, there's been some sort of editing done here in these shots, but I think we're still in the upside down Hawkins. It looks like that from this shot, and then we see Hopper by the wall. So I'm thinking that whatever this is, as I said, it's got some part in tearing down the wall. It's either some sort of wormhole, time travel thing, or it's tearing down the wall, or both. I think this is probably going to be in episode 7, The Bridge, because like bridging the gap between these 2 worlds, these 3 worlds of including Dimension X, upside down and right side up. And it would be a big cliffhanger ending if then we saw what was on the other side. Again, my guess is Dimension X, but I don't know that. But also Hopper does look like he's in his original outfit here, whereas later on he seems to be wearing something else. So again, this could happen at a different point entirely. I'm actually quite confused about when these things are happening. Maybe they're all happening a lot earlier on. Maybe this is a lot of episode 5 and 6 stuff. I don't know. I feel like I'm saying I don't know a lot. And on this, I did start this video by saying I was creating a timeline, but it's really quite hard to do that. So it's basically just me grouping shots together. Anyway, we're going to move on now. So this is Elle in the Upside Down, and this I think is taking place in episode 5, right after where we left off in episode 4. As again, she's in the same outfit as then, whereas later on she's in the wetsuit. So this I think is back to the first time she's in the Upside Down. But I think later it's when she comes back into the Upside Down with Mike and Robin and maybe some other people. I'm hoping Will. I'm hoping Will's there too, because I want Mike and Will to have lots of scenes together, and we know they do. If we're gonna believe what Noah said in the behind the scenes stuff. And also I think there was some other stuff about their filming schedules. But anyway, so Elle's here, she's talking to Callie. I reckon it's when they've just rescued her. I think this is them then going to be escaping of Hopper out of this upside down lab thing. Elle's blasting something. Then we see Callie attacking the soldier. Then I think this shot of Dr. K from the Instagram stuff could also be part of this. So I think this is all in their escape. Then we see this other picture from Instagram. It's Hopper, Callie, and Elle. I think this could be the churchyard here. I think this could be some sort of gravestones behind them. The next bit definitely is the churchyard. We see Elle destroying headstone in various screenshots I've taken here. We can see Callie behind her. This, you can just about make her out there. It's like her white outfit she's wearing. I'm not sure this is Hopper's hand, which looks a bit ominous if it is, because it's kind of with exploding stuff. But Hopper's there because I think this is part of the same shot when he's telling Elle to come on. Again, maybe this is to do with the wall coming down. If the wall comes down earlier, maybe this is how they escape back to Hawkins. And then we see what I think is like the second time round in the Upside Down, because we've got Mike again here, and I realise this is Mike's first time in the Upside Down. We have Elle behind him on like the kind of right side, because that's her shoes, and we'll see. I don't think you can see it in this shot actually, but there's the blue wristband she wears on her arm. Took me a lot of time looking for all their shoes to identify them, but that is definitely Elle. This is Robin on the left. That's her Converse she wears. And I'm thinking there's someone behind, because you can just about make out this thing which looks like the top of a walkie-talkie. So I'm thinking there's another person there. I'm really hoping it's Will, for obvious reasons. we want some Will and Mike scenes, but also because we had Will, Mike, and Robin kind of appearing to be together earlier on. Maybe they're a group. Then also Elle is there, because we probably want Will and Elle together now if they got superpowers. Or maybe this is even Callie behind. I don't know. We don't see Callie in any other shots really, so they wouldn't. I don't think they'd bring her back and then kill her off super quick, because they're probably annoying a lot of people as it is bringing her back. So you wouldn't just do that. I don't think you'd make the most of her if you're bringing her back. But anyway, potentially another person there. We see Mike looking up. This could be just the red lightning, or it could be part of the anomaly he's seeing in Hawkins' lab. Or this could be something to do with the radio tower thing if this happens later on. Then we see a shot of him reuniting with Dustin. I think this could be with him rescuing Dustin from the Upside Down. Again, I really don't know at this point. I've gotten so lost with what times. Elle's definitely in the Upside Down at 2 different times and comes out in between because she changes outfits. Not sure about Dustin and the others. Not as obvious. But anyway, Mike's hugging Dustin. We see Elle behind. Pretty sure this is the foyer of Hawkins' lab based on some comparisons I did of the door to what we saw in earlier seasons. So I think that's where this is taking place. We see some shots of Elle using her powers. Again, this is now the second time she's in the Upside Down because she's in the wetsuit. I don't know, got a hand out doing some power thing. Then we see some vines attacking her. I don't know if this is in the lab or over by the church or this is somewhere with her fighting some sort of vines. And there's this shot of, I'm pretty sure this is Elle, not Callie, in I think this is like the original isolation sensory deprivation tank. I keep saying isolation. Sensory deprivation tank that Elle had from season 1. And again, I think this is another point because Hopper, this is a different outfit than he's wearing in the upside down shots. This it may even not be in the upside down. This may be in the right side up Hawkins lab actually, because it doesn't look very upside downy. There's lights behind, and there's also no vines. So I think actually this probably should have gone on my other part, but I think this is right side up lab. I'm thinking this probably takes place nearer the end of volume 2, but I don't really have any reason for that. I just think it probably does. Then we'll move on to some of the Max and Holly stuff. I think this happens all in episode 6, Escape from Camazots. And I think, again, this is linked to why the Demodogs are attacking the hospital. See Max and Holly running for the forest and hiding by the caves. I think this is probably the first part because it would make sense if the first part of the mindscape they go through is where they already are, and then they go to further memories. Maybe Vecna is chasing them here, and that's why they're hiding in the caves. We see them looking down some sort of shaft. Maybe this is the field that we see in a minute behind them. I'm not really sure what this is or what this is about. Then we see them walking to this door, and I think each door, or there's later on there's the mirror, is them going through to a new memory. This could even be the field by the radio station, but I'm not really sure. It's probably just a field. Then we see this one of Max going through the window that she's broken. People have noted that this is probably the playground outside where we saw Holly in her school, and we also saw the flashbacks of Mike and Will. And then climbing into Holly's room, the lights are flickering, which probably means Vecna's kind of watching. I originally said that this is probably Alice in Wonderland imagery because we see a lot of fairy tale imagery around Holly involving Alice in Wonderland in her Alice, Max Mad Hatter, and also Wizard of Oz imagery with her being Dorothy, Max being the Scarecrow. Some of my comments said this is probably Alice in the Looking Glass. I've never read that, but that does seem to make more sense based on the title. I've also seen other YouTubers saying that this is to do with a film called The Wiz, which I don't know anything about, but it would fit in with the Wizard of Oz theme. Any sort of fairy tale theme around them. But anyway, they're in Holly's room. I've done a full breakdown of Holly's room a week ago, if you're interested in seeing that, because there's actually quite a few Easter eggs in her room and things that, like posters and stuff on a wall that do hint at what's happening in the story. But anyway, I think this is them now going through Holly's memories, similar we saw when Max was going through Henry's memories, how then she suddenly stumbled upon the first time Henry was stalking her. So I think that this is them going through Holly's memories, because anytime that Henry was stalking her, then he will have this memory, if that makes sense. So obviously we know he was watching in the playground. This is her room. Because the lights are flickering, I'm thinking maybe this is when she came up and went into her bed, though again I think the door was shut here, so I don't know. But anyway, these are Holly's memories, is the point I'm trying to make. Then we see this very menacing shot of Mr. Watsit version of Henry staring in through a window. I think this could be the window in the Wheeler's house, like we saw at the start of episode 1 of him watching Holly, though this is now, rather than being nice and sunny, it's very menacing. Though at both times it was there was water outside, so you couldn't really see because there's a sprinkler now it's raining. I think this could be to do with the sequence we see in a minute of him in the Wheeler house. So we see this thing here of him on the staircase in the Wheelers, kind of glitching between his, Henry 1 form and also his Mr. Watsit form. I'm not really sure what's going on here because, as far as we know, he can't appear in the real world, in any form other than the one he's currently in, if that makes sense, because the Vecna form is his actual form, what he actually looks like. Whereas these are illusions he's making. Maybe he can form illusions in the real world like Callie can, I'm not sure. But maybe this is just part of in the memoryscape actually still. Maybe they're in Holly's house in the memoryscape, he's chasing them. Because again, I feel like it'd be odd if this buffering thing was happening in the actual real world. But I don't know. It's a show about sci-fi and magic and powers and stuff, so this could be what's happening. Then we see Holly, presumably in part of the sequence, looking scared. This isn't the Wheeler's kitchen, as I pointed out, it's a different place. I wasn't sure where it was. People have said it looks like a kind of wine cellar. I don't know if the Wheelers have one of this. Maybe it's in a different house. I don't know. It did make me think of the one in the Turbo Trap, but I don't know why they'd be there. I don't think it is that one. But they're in some kind of cellar, probably in some house. Maybe it's a different house. Maybe it's not the Wheelers. It doesn't look like their basement. That where they are is to be determined. And then we see Vecna coming around a corner, now back into his like Vecna 2.0 form. And I really like all like the red vines and stuff they've added onto his face here. I think it looks really good. And it looks very menacing. He's saying it's time in this part. Then we have a few kind of miscellaneous shots, which couldn't really pinpoint at any moment in time. We have this rift thing opening. I said before that I thought maybe this was some sort of joining together of Dimension X, right side up, upside down, because it looks like a crack's going through the floor, but then the floor's on the ceiling, like the upside down. But it does look kind of more Dimension X like, with all the gravity distorted and floating. But also gravity going wrong is something to do with wormholes, like it's all to do with related to that. There's also now next I'll put a shot of when someone's falling through. I assume this was Vecna, when he first falls through, when Elle puts him in Dimension X. Some people are saying maybe it's even Well, which is a good possibility. I'm also now looking at it, literally right at this moment, thinking, is this some sort of the wormhole thing being created here? Because with the lightning in this shot and the two kind of bit of parts in the clouds, it does kind of, it looks like wormhole shape, like as if it could be like a symbol for that. And I think the top is this ground that we just saw cracking open. So I'm thinking, could this be how the upside down was created? Could this be part of that? Is this wheel falling? Is this the upside down? There's a lot of questions there I don't have the answers to, but I would love to hear your takes on that because no one really knows what's going on at this point in this area, and it's very interesting. Also, I had this shot from one of the trailers. As far as I know, we haven't seen this shot yet, but I can't be 100% sure at this point. There's been a lot of battle shots. I don't really know where this is or what's going on, apart from a lot of people being blasted. No further comment really there, but if you have any ideas, let me know. So then we have these last shots of Vecna in the cave. And again, I mentioned before that in the table read they released of episode 4, The Sorcerer, they described this place that Will was drawing. I can't remember the exact words, but it's like looking like the monster or something. Well, I'm not even sure they said the inside of a monster. People are speculating that this could be some kind of like ribcage of an inside of a big monster, some bones. These kind of look like teeth, and like Vecna's linking up to it. So maybe this is either. I don't think it'll be an actual like a alive today monster. I think it's more likely to be a dead one, like a relic of one. Or maybe he's trying to make a new one. I don't know what Vecna's doing. And there's this weird red thing at the top again. I've noticed, which kind of matches the new vines on his face, and even the little like spikes now we see coming out of like his eyebrows kind of remind me of the spikes, like the big ones behind. Is he somehow transforming into something similar to this? I'm not sure. Is this because this is where he's taking the children? Is this inside the belly of like a big ancient beast thing? Because these spires, some kind of like the ribcage of a monster. I'm not sure, but I feel like they wouldn't describe it that way in the script if you weren't at least meant to think it looked like that. But I think that's probably where I shall end this. I feel like I've probably been talking for about an hour now. So this will be fun times to edit. Again, I'm not going to edit it that much. I'm just going to cut out the bits where I'm making absolutely no sense. So there's probably going to be a lot. I mean, you'd have already watched at this point of me saying like, I don't know, like, because if I've got no script, that's just how I talk. But I thought you might want to see a video just with me talking like this more, because I feel like sometimes, although I did write a few bullet points of what I was saying, there's basically none. It's like 1A4 sheet of paper. Usually if I was scripting something this long, it would be like 20 pages of paper. I feel like my scripted videos are useful for ones where I'm trying to make a point and take you through evidence, especially if it's videos I'm aiming at people who maybe aren't really on board the Byler train yet, and I'm explaining the evidence and quite a simple way, or I'm explaining a very nuanced point, like when I do character studies. But for this sort of one, I just want to give my honest thoughts, kind of a bit of a ramble, but discussion is kind of like a podcast style video. People say they like having like my last one on in the background. That's also why I like doing these type of videos. So maybe you've been doing something else around the house whilst listening to this, I'm not sure. But I hope you enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts about anything I've mentioned in this trailer. And also any thoughts about any of this. Oh, before I finish, I feel like I don't know how I'd never mentioned this before. I probably have to talk about Byler a little bit, very briefly, because I feel like anyone who's subscribed to my channel and watched my videos, that's probably what you've come here to see me talk about, and I realise I haven't really talked about them at all. That's because we don't really get any Byler content in this trailer. And don't get me wrong, that's not a Byler isn't happening. If anything, I'm actually more convinced it is happening now. And I'm not just saying that because I'm delusional and I'm clutching at straws. There is logic behind that thought, but obviously that is why I haven't really discussed Byler, because there isn't new stuff to discuss, if that makes sense. Obviously, I discussed the shot of them at the radio station and me hoping that Will was behind Mike in the Upside Down, but that's basically all we've got. But my big question is, why aren't there more Will and Mike scenes? Because I feel like whether these scenes were romantic or not, it feels odd not to put them in, because throughout, season 2, 3, and 4, especially 2 and 4, we've had Mike and Will together a lot. Like, they've been in a team together, they've been in a group, and especially at the end of season 4, Mike saying, like, it's better if we're a team, I'm glad we're a team. Or maybe that was midway for season 4. Anyway, it's established that they're going to be a team. So even audience watching who don't believe in Byler, haven't even noticed it's going to happen or whatever, purely based on what we've seen, surely it'd be odd to them that we don't have more Mike and Will friendship together as a team moments. Because especially with the return to season 1 leader Mike, season 1 and 2 leader Mike, that's what you'd expect, right? Because now they're buddies again or whatever, they're going to be teamed up and spending time together and protecting each other like they always have. So I feel like my point I'm trying to make is, they were trying to make the point that Byler wasn't going to happen, surely you'd include scenes of them just being platonic in this trailer and just getting along as a team as usual. And also that makes me think, what is happening in these scenes that they don't want to show? Because it's gotta either be like in other plots very important, like to do with the location of where they are or whatever, or it's gotta be very like romantically charged, because as I said, otherwise why wouldn't you include this? And again, back to the point I think I made 100 times here, we know they have scenes together, and I'm judging this on something that Noah said at some sort of convention, where he's saying most of his scenes in season 5 were with Finn, and then he kind of stops because he realizes he probably shouldn't be giving this away. And again, that isn't an official source. Maybe he was just misremembering things. But we've got to see more than just the one-on-one field scene of them, because you don't accidentally think you spend the majority of your time filming with this other person when you actually only have one scene together. Like, even if he's not 100% correct and they spent the most time together, it's got to be more than one scene. You know what I mean? Like, the math isn't mathing there. We've got to see more. And also, I believe there was some sort of, I'm not sure if it's an official or some sort of leak about them being, Finn and Noah being asked to film like 6 months earlier than the others. But I don't have any information where I heard that or where the original source was, so I don't know that bit's true. But I think it is something we heard. So again, where are all these scenes? You don't take 6 months to film one field scene. What are they filming? Why couldn't we see it? And if they were just trying to go with platonic Byler endgame, why wouldn't you show scenes of them being platonic and buddies and, as a team together and everything? It doesn't make sense. So that was my short take on Byler, based in this trailer. I will discuss at some point my theories for them. I think I'm going to do that like just before Vol.2 is released, like a final theories, like predictions video. The one last thing I want to mention is my Q&A part 2 to your comments and questions will be coming out soon. I recorded the whole thing. I go onto YouTube straight after because I wanted to, post that I just recorded it. Literally says the trailer for Volume 2 was posted 4 minutes ago, and I spent the whole end of that video talking about my plans for this video I was going to make when the trailer comes out, so I'm going to have to redo that last bit. But I think once I edit it, I'm just going to keep it the same as it was. To be honest, a lot of what I said, because we didn't particularly see any Mike and Will scenes in this trailer, I don't think I have to change. My thoughts are still the same after this trailer. I might just add a quick bit at the end, just adding any extra thoughts I have. I'm not sure when that's going to come out. Again, that one's like an hour long of me talking. I feel like this is going to be at least an hour long of me talking at this point. I don't know how long this is going to take me to edit. I'm filming this on Tuesday evening. I don't know when it's coming out. The other video, the Q&A, will probably take another day or two for me to edit. So I reckon that there won't really be any more long ones before Volume 2 is released. Potentially one right at the end, where I want it's kind of more answering your questions, kind of ranking your theories. I'll explain near the time that happens. So I might just do a few more short ones, but this is probably the last big ramble you're going to get from me before that, apart from the Q&A one. I don't think I have much more to say now, so I'm going to stop talking, because I've been talking too long, and I'm starting to wondering if I'm making any sense. But I really hope you've enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed this long form content. I hope I made somewhat sense and my thoughts were in a somewhat coherent manner. Because I do tend to do a bit of a Robin sometimes when I talk and just talk on and on and on without making a lot of sense. So I'm gonna hit end now, because I'm just continuing talking and not saying anything. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Hope you have a great day, and goodbye.